Parliament for Dartmouth Cole Harbour. As it is St. Paddy's Day, and as a proud Irishman, I think we would be amiss if we did not take a moment of silence for the late Brian Mulroney. Thank you. So, the reason we are here today, Pierre Poilievre is a leader of Canada's Common Sense Conservatives. He grew up the adopted son of school teachers. His wife, Anna, came to Canada as a refugee from Venezuela. Canada made and kept a promise that anyone can achieve anything that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything. That hard work pays off with powerful paychecks that buy affordable food, gas, and homes in safe neighborhoods. That promise has been broken after 8 years of Trudeau. Pierre's mission is to restore Canada's promise. His common sense plan is axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. He wants to bring home the country we knew and we still love. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me and give a very warm welcome to the leader of the Common Sense Conservatives and the next Prime Minister of Canada, Pierre Poilievre.
St. Patrick's Day, Halifax! Who's ready to axe the tax? Who's ready to build the homes? Who's ready to fix the budget? Who's ready to stop the crime? Who is ready to rebuild our military? And who's ready to make common sense common again? Wow, what an incredible crowd here today. And we all know why we're here. Because on April Fool's Day with Justin Trudeau and the NDP, the joke is on you. A 23% carbon tax hike on your food, on your groceries, and on everything else. A job-killing tax that will put people out of work, make seniors choose between eating and heating, a tax we can't afford, that doesn't work, that we don't need. And so we're here today to send the message that all parliamentarians should vote with the Common Sense Conservatives next week to spike the hike until we can axe the tax. But first, some more important business. Look, today the apples are green. What do you know? St. Patrick's Day. Oh, look what else they left me, a little present here. Look at that. I can resist everything except temptation. Give it a little taste here. You know, they have these nitrogen capsules they put in the bottle. We couldn't get it on tap here. It's crazy, you know, the way the world's coming to after 8 years of Trudeau. You can't get it on tap anymore. You have to get it out of a can. But they have these little nitrogen capsules to put the foam on the top permanent. It's a great technology, great innovation. But today, you know, with all the quadrupling of the carbon tax and the doubling of housing costs after 8 years of Trudeau, it's enough to drive a man to drink, but he's raising taxes on that too. The beer tax is going up. The beer tax is going up on April 1st. Again, the way that Justin Trudeau is playing a joke on all Canadians, making every little pleasure that Canadians have left more and more expensive. You know, as Trudeau said, what was that? I heard a little. Axe the tax. Okay. Every time someone yells, axe the tax, I have to take another sip. I'm going to be a mess by the time this is done. The speech is going to get more interesting by the minute, I promise. As Churchill said, alcohol has taken much out of me, but not as much as I've taken out of it. But it is St. Patrick's Day. And it makes me think of the best Irishman I ever knew, my grandfather. I was adopted, but my maternal biological grandfather was Patrick Farrell. My biological grandmother was Molly Malloy. Doesn't get any more Irish than that. Molly Malloy. Molly Malloy and Patrick Farrell. That's about as Irish as it gets. Of course, there are only two types of people in the world, those who are Irish and those who wish they were. But he came over to Canada from Ireland for a better life. He started off by delivering ice. He drove an ice truck back then. And he worked his way up and raised a wonderful family and built a life for himself. And it makes me think of another great Irishman, one of our most famous, the great Brian Mulroney. The son of an electrician at the local mill in Baie-Comeau. Incredible story when you think of it. From a poor Irish family, he was able to raise himself up, get a good education, become a lawyer, run for leader, and eventually become one of our great prime ministers. That's the Canadian story. That story is the one I grew up with when I was adopted to two school teachers, and they always taught me that in Canada, it didn't matter where you came from. It mattered where you were going. It didn't matter who you knew. It mattered what you can do. And that's the reason that my wife and her family came here as refugees from Venezuela. 6 of them crammed into a 2-bedroom apartment in working-class Montreal. Her father, having been a banker, had to get out of bed early, jump on the back of a pickup truck to go out to the middle of a fruit farm and pick fruit all day long so that he could feed his family. But now they're a very successful family. They've all achieved their dreams. Her brother is a carpenter. Her other brother is a soldier. Her sister is a nurse. And her father owns his own business. That is the country that we all love, where it doesn't matter where you come from, it matters where you're going. A country where anybody from anywhere can do anything as long as they work hard. That was the Canadian promise, right? The Canadian promise. Work hard, you can do anything you want. That's the reason so many people come here. Justin Trudeau broke a lot of promises, but that was the cruelest broken promise of all. You know why? Because it wasn't his promise to break. It was a promise that belonged to all of us. And yet when we look around us today, we see it, like everything else, is broken. The reality is that after 8 years of Trudeau, there are 2 million people lined up at food banks right around the country. 2 million people standing on street corners. We'll be having a. Axe the tax. Axe the tax. Axe the tax. After 8 years of Trudeau, 2 million people line up at food banks all around the world, unable to feed themselves. We now have She just wants to axe the tax, that's all, right? She wants to axe the tax. Look, I understand why people are frustrated when they look out on their streets today. They see 30 homeless encampments in Halifax after 8 years of Justin Trudeau. Were there 35 homeless encampments in the city before Trudeau? No! We have, the city officials have said there are at least 50 members of the military in Halifax living homeless. You imagine that? Members, active members are our armed forces that are forced to couch surf, live in parking lots, or be part of these terrible tent cities. After 8 years of Trudeau, there's now a new Facebook group. It's called the Dumpster Diving Network. People that are literally forced to jump into garbage cans and eat, and they have shared their tips on an 8,000 person Facebook group. Can you imagine before Trudeau that we would have had that number of people who are networking together in order to find ways to eat out of garbage cans? After 8 years of Trudeau, we have carpenters who can't afford to live in the very homes that they build. After 8 years of Trudeau, it now takes 25 years for the average family to save up for a down payment on the average home in Toronto. That used to be the time it took to pay off an entire mortgage. After 8 years of Trudeau, we have crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder in our streets. And now is the time that he chooses, in the middle of all this desperation and suffering, to raise the cost on our people with this cruel carbon tax hike. My friends, Canadians are good and decent people. They don't have to live this way. We don't have to give up the things we used to take for granted, like affordable food and homes, all for the incompetence of and ego of one man. He is not worth the cost, not worth the crime, not worth the corruption, and not worth the country that we know and love. The good news is that life wasn't like this before Trudeau, and it won't be like this after he's gone. That's a reason to be hopeful about. We're going to turn the hurt that he's caused into the hope that Canadians need. Starting with axing the tax, which is more than just saving you at the pumps, because the tax applies across our entire economy. It raises the costs for our farmers, forestry workers, fish harvesters, and factory workers. But by axing the tax, we can lower the cost and increase the production of all those great Canadians that provide us with the necessities of life. Let's start with farming. I have in my riding some of the greatest farmers in the world. They're pretty darn good farmers here. Wouldn't you agree with that, Elmer McKay? Great farmers. They grow some great apples here as well, right? The farmers here in this region are working to produce food, but the higher energy costs on their tractors, their dryers, their barns, all gets passed on to the end user. So, for example, in my riding, we have the Little Miracles of Manotick. They are a beautiful greenhouse grower, not that type of greenhouse, Justin. They grow tomatoes. But the problem is that the tax applies on the CO2 that they release into their greenhouse, even though it is absorbed by the plant life. Apparently, Justin missed that day in science class. The consequence is that there's a price signal to the Manotick consumer to buy the Mexican tomato, which is more affordable at the grocery store because it doesn't pay the Trudeau tax, even though it is transported by truck and train all the way across North America, burning fossil fuels into the atmosphere. The government in Canada sends the price signal to buy that foreign tomato. And that is true of all our producers. $150,000 will be the average cost for a farmer when the full carbon tax is implemented in 2030. 150 grand will mean many farmers will go under, forcing us to buy our food from more expensive and polluting foreign jurisdictions, driving up our food costs and making our nation more dependent on other countries to feed us. By axing the tax and getting rid of unnecessary red tape and burdens on our farmers, we will bring home that production to Canada, good, nutritious, Canadian-grown food to feed our people. All right, I think it's time for a quiz. I told you all how much the average farm is going to pay for carbon tax when it's fully implemented. How much is it? There we go. You already, this guy, look at this little guy. Come on up here, buddy. Look at this. You get a shirt. Come on up here. There you go. How would you like a shirt? There you go. There you. If you drink lots of unpasteurized milk, you'll get big real fast, and this shirt will fit you, okay? Way to go. What's your name?
Alex.
Alex, why are you here today?
I'm here to see you.
Thank you. I'm here to see you, buddy. Why don't you have an apple as well? There you go. Alex, get your apple. You get an apple, too. There you go. An apple a day keeps the woke journalists away. Thank you. Thank you. How do you like the shirt? Look, how we got some other shirts up here. Why doesn't this young lady and this gentleman come on up here? Oh no, we have, yeah, come on up here. We got a couple of shirts here. Show off your merchandise here. Isn't that nice? There we go. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. What's your name?
Gil. Gil.
Gil. That's a real Irish name, eh? Yeah. No? English. He's an Englishman. Oh, we'll let him up here anyway on St. Patty's Day. What's your name? Catherine. Thank you for being here, Catherine. Are you ready to axe the tax?
Absolutely.
All right. You know, WTF, it just means where's the funds? I don't know what the fuss is all about. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Go to bringithome.ca, bringithome.ca, and you can get shirts just like that. You'll be the envy of all your neighbors. We're going to axe the tax also for our forestry workers. Elmer, do you know anything about forestry? Okay, here we go. Come on, Elmer, get up here. You know anything about forestry?
If you cut all the little trees, you won't have any big ones.
That's true. You got to wait till they grow strong. Do you know they have this new technology, 3D printers, that actually suck carbon out of the atmosphere and turn it into a building material? Do you know that? Yeah, they're called trees. Yeah, brand new technology. Invented, I think, in Nova Scotia, wasn't it? Yeah, they're green, wonderful. But the reality is that when you tax the energy of our forestry workers to harvest the lumber and put it on a truck and ship it to the mill and have the mill transform it into building materials, that raises the cost of housing. The carbon tax raises the cost of drywall and countless other materials that go into building a home. They will force us to bring in more foreign building materials at higher prices at a time when we have the worst housing crisis by far of any country in the G7, when our housing costs have doubled in just 8 years. The last thing we need to do is tax the men and women who log our forests and help us build our homes. We are going to bring home forestry production by axing the tax and lowering the cost. For our fisheries, we're going to axe the tax for our fish harvesters who bring home the catch. After Liberals have mismanaged our fishery and turned Canadian against Canadian, divided our people, our fish harvesters are suffering. They're struggling to put the catch on their own plate, and now a tax increase on their energy will hurt even more. Common sense conservatives will axe the tax and properly manage the fishery with common sense and with direction from the fish harvesters in Atlantic Canada rather than just the bureaucrats and the activists in Ottawa. Bring home the catch. Bring it home. And our factories. I was at an incredible factory in British Columbia where a wonderful family who came here from the Punjab started a wonderful furniture company using local Canadian lumber. They took me through step by step every part of the Chesterfields and couches they make that are more expensive as a result of the carbon tax applying on those inputs. Just the furniture that we sit on becomes more expensive. I was over at Stelco, the great steel company, the oldest steel mill in Canada, in Hamilton. And they said by 2030, the carbon tax will cost them $500 million a year, forcing us to bring in more steel from Americans, or worse, from China and other countries. The carbon tax pushes production out of Canada to more polluting foreign jurisdictions, when the responsible thing for us to do is to bring home industrial and resource production to this country, the most responsible in the world. Bring it home. Bring it home. That's what it means to bring it home. So we have here in Canada the greatest resources of any country in the world per capita. But carbon tax increases drive the production abroad, and now we have the unconstitutional C-69, which blocks production of Canadian resources and makes this one of the hardest places on earth to dig a mine, produce gas, oil, or other forms of energy, to harvest a forest. We are going to repeal the unconstitutional C-69, and we're going to bring home production to our country. National Bank just the other day did a study, and they showed that if we were to help India power its grid with our clean Canadian natural gas, rather than more than doubling their coal burning to power their grid, we could reduce global greenhouse gas emissions more than Canada emits in total in a year. We have 1,300 trillion cubic feet of natural gas right beneath our feet, but we do not export a single cubic foot of it overseas because Trudeau has blocked all 18 liquefaction facilities that were proposed when he took office. Only one of these plants is on the verge of becoming operational because it was approved under the previous Conservative government before C-69, and it was given an exemption from the carbon tax, which is the only way that it could be economical. It is the biggest project in Canadian history, and it is a First Nations-led project, the Great Haisla Nation. It brought this investment to their community under the great Ellis Ross, who is a common sense conservative candidate in the forthcoming election, the former chief of the Haisla. Now, we have other First Nations along the West Coast that are doing exactly the same thing. And we need to empower our First Nations to lift themselves out of poverty by quickly approving these incredible projects to bring home production and paychecks to our country. I talked to Chief Dale of the Squamish. He took me to the site of the future Squamish First Nations natural gas plant. It's on a fully contaminated, abandoned mill site. The mill abandoned the place. They left it completely polluted. They're going to clean it up using the future revenues of the LNG plant. And where local First Nations couldn't even get a job in that mill 30 or 40 years ago, they are now going to be the executives of this multi-billion-dollar liquefaction plant that will lift their people out of poverty, bring home production to Canada. We have major advantages on LNG, liquefied gas. We're the shortest shipping distances to Europe and Asia of any country in North America. We have clean electricity to power the liquefaction. And what else do we have? What does it take to liquefy gas? Cold weather. And what do we have in Canada? Cold weather. It's true, it actually reduces the cost of liquefying by 25% to be in a cold country like Canada versus a warm climate like the US Gulf Coast. We have that here. In fact, it gets so cold in Canada, last winter Justin Trudeau was seen with his hands in his own pockets. So We're going to repeal C-69 grant fast permits to LNG plants, cool that gas to minus 161 degrees Celsius, put it on a ship to Asia to break Asian dependence on coal, send it off to Europe to break European dependence on Putin, and turn dollars for dictators into paychecks for our people. We're going to rapidly approve mines. We're going to make this, we're going to work with the cities, the provinces, and the federal government to make this the fastest place to get a building permit. We can bring home production to our country to create more of what cash buys rather than just creating more cash, which has been the strategy of this government. And now I talk about the other tax, the worst tax, even worse than the carbon tax. It is the inflation tax. The inflation tax is when the government prints money to fund its spending, which bids up the cost of all the goods we buy. It's very simple. If you have an economy with $10 and 10, let's say, apples, it's $1 an apple. $10, 10 apples, it's $1 an apple. You double the number of dollars in the economy to 20, but you still have only 10 apples. Well, you're not twice as rich just because you have twice the cash. You just pay twice as much, right? Money is not the wealth. Money is just the technology by which we transfer value over space and time. It's the accounting system. It's the stuff that cash buys, the apples themselves, that are the real value. The government in Canada has created so much cash that our money supply has gone from $1.8 trillion to $2.4 trillion. That's the bills, coins, and bank deposits. And that's why we've had this incredible inflation. The money supply grew by 32% while the real economy grew by 4%. The money is growing 8 times faster than the stuff that money buys. That is just inflation, right? Just inflation. But there's a solution. We have to cap government spending and cut government waste in order to balance the budget and end the money printing. That's fixing the budget is the key to stopping inflation. Stopping inflation will bring down interest rates so that Canadians don't lose their homes to foreclosure. Here's how we're going to do it. My common sense law, it's called the dollar for dollar law. It will require every dollar of new spending be matched with a dollar of savings. This is the same principle of scarcity and trade-offs that single moms and small businesses make every single day. You want more of this, you have to have less of that, or you have to get a bargain on this and that. You have to get more value from each dollar. Right now, there's no incentive in the government to get value for money. No bureaucrat gets a bonus if they deliver the project for a lower cost. In fact, quite the contrary. They are incentivized to increase the cost, to do less with more. Think of it. Look at the ArriveCan app. $80,000 app that costs $60 million. 76% of the contractors admit they did no work at all. The biggest contractor, GC Strategies, 4 people headquartered in the basement of a cottage. They admit they don't do IT work, and yet they got $20 million of IT contracts. This, you might think, is just one example of petty corruption or mismanagement, but this is part of $21 billion the government is spending on outside consultants, which is like half the federal budget for healthcare. It is almost as much as we spend on our entire military. It works out to $1,400 for every family in Canada. That is the governmental inflation I'm talking about. By capping spending and cutting waste, we'll force top bureaucrats to get rid of needless contracts and find ways to deliver more with less. I will be cutting back on outside consultants and bringing the work inside our already large bureaucracy to do it at a lower cost. We'll get rid of the $1 billion Green Fund, which has already had $150 million misappropriated. We'll save money by cutting back on foreign aid to dictators, terrorists, and multinational bureaucracies. And when we cut back on government, we can afford to make work pay again. We're going to end the war on work. Right now, if you earn an extra $1, you lose as much as 80 cents as a single mom with $60,000 a year as a salary and 3 kids. You earn $1, you lose 80 cents on clawbacks of your child benefit, income tax, payroll tax, gas tax, and carbon tax to get to work. That means of a $25 an hour wage, she only keeps $5 of that next hour she works. We're punishing workers in this country. In fact, I was at a grain terminal. In Thunder Bay, and the manager gave everyone a bonus. He thought they'd be happy. They were in his office the day the pay stubs came out because they said, "Where did it all go?" It got gobbled up by the government. Nobody has an incentive to work extra. So my common sense plan is to cut income taxes so that your hard work once again pays off with powerful paychecks. Hard work should pay off with powerful paychecks, and it will. Once again, speaking of powerful paychecks, we have brilliant immigrant professionals who come from around the world and then are banned from working in their field. 20,000 immigrant doctors, 32,000 immigrant nurses prevented from doing their jobs because there's no way to prove their qualifications. 85% of Filipino nurses are banned from working in our hospitals, even though in the States they can take a test and get qualified within 2 weeks. So we have the red seal for the trades. Any red seal workers here? Way to go. We've had that for 70 years so that our young people can get licensed for all of Canada. Common sense conservatives are going to bring in the blue seal for the professions so that people trained abroad can take a test, prove they're qualified, get to work serving in our hospitals and across our economy. Common sense. And by the way, I'll keep calling on all the provincial governments to end all the vaccine mandates so we can get our nurses back. Absolutely. Oh, look at that. Look at this guy. These guys have spelled something here. WTF. There you go. Way to go. Where's the funds? That's what we want to know. Where's the funds? Thank you, guys. That was very creative. This is very artistic audience we have here today, Elmer. It's incredible. We want people to bring home powerful paychecks, but they need homes to bring them to. Housing costs have doubled after 8 years of Trudeau because we have the fewest homes per capita of any country in the G7, even though we spend a larger share of our economy on residential construction than any other country in the OECD, and we have by far the most land per capita. So how is it that we spend almost twice as much on home building, we have many multiples more acreage of land, and yet we have the fewest homes? The answer is bureaucracy. Government bureaucracy. We are the second slowest place in the OECD out of almost 40 countries to get a building permit. This adds $1.3 million to the cost of every newly built home in Vancouver. Winnipeg blocked 2,000 homes right next to a transit station that was built for those homes. Montreal has blocked 25,000 homes in the last 6 years. Toronto area municipalities have increased development charges by 800 to 900%. These are the reasons why people can't afford to live anywhere. And by the way, the price radiation from the big cities, I call it radiation because it just seeps farther and further out. People have to move out of Toronto, so they move to the suburbs. They can't afford the suburbs. They move further out to communities like London. The inflation hits there, so they move. Many of them have been moving here. In fact, over from 2020 to 2022, the worst housing inflation was right here in Halifax, in all of Canada. So nobody is immune from this, and that's why the federal government has to take on these local bureaucracies. We give $5 billion a year of federal money directly to the municipalities just to exist. They use that money to build up big fat bureaucracies that block things. My common sense plan is to link those dollars to the number of homes that get built. I will require municipalities permit 15% more housing completions per year as a condition of getting federal money. If they beat the target, they get a bonus. Miss the target, they pay a fine. Realtors are paid for the number of homes they sell, builders for the number they build. Let's pay our municipalities for the number of homes they permit so that they'll speed up and let us build. Let's build the homes. We're going to sell off 6,000 federal buildings and thousands of acres of federal land. And it warms my heart to think of the beautiful family pulling up in their U-Haul to move into their wonderful new home in the former headquarters of the CBC. We'll back the trades as well, because we need more boots, not just more suits, right? We're going to work with the provinces to get more Red Seal curriculum into our schools so that kids can get pre-apprentices or maybe even apprenticeship hours done before they even get their high school diploma. We're going to start treating our tradespeople fairly. A CEO can write off the cost of his private jet, but the worker who goes from Nova Scotia to Fort Mac can't write off the plane ticket. Common Sense Conservatives are going to bring in the Tax Fairness for Traveling Trades Workers Act, which will allow our workers to write off the full cost of food, accommodation, and transportation. I always tell young people, they say, what's your advice? I say, become a tradesman or a tradeswoman. The trades are going to rule the world. They've got not just knowledge, but also know-how, incredible know-how. And we need more people working in the trades. And we need them because they're going to build our homes, they're going to dig our mines, they're going to bring home our production to this country. But we need those homes and those businesses to be in safe neighborhoods. Safe neighborhoods. After 8 years of Trudeau, crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder reigns in our street with a 40% increase in violent crime, car thefts going through the roof, the new industry of basically stealing cars and putting them on boats off to the other side of the Atlantic is like, it's one of the fastest growing industries in Canada today. It's unbelievable. After 8 years of Trudeau's catch and release, the same repeat offenders are out on the streets again and again. I was talking to the St. John Police Union. They say business is up. They're getting a lot of return customers. Very loyal customers. Sometimes the same customer 3 times in the same day. They arrest him in the morning, and he's out on bail by noon. He reoffends. They take him in, and they rearrest him at 6 o'clock just in time for him to go back to prison and have dinner before he gets bail again. In Vancouver, the same 40 offenders were arrested or charged 6,000 times. 6,000 arrests for 40 offenders. That's 150 arrests per offender per year. My friends, this is insane. Our common sense plan will make repeat violent offenders ineligible for bail. It will be jail, not bail for repeat violent offenders. We're going to target the drugs. The drug crisis is running rampant, out of control. You see it here in Halifax, in the 30-plus tent cities that Trudeau's policies have created in this great city of yours. Many of the people are trapped in a life of addiction. We know how the addiction started. The drug companies pumped billions of dollars worth of opioids into North America, calling it OxyContin. They said that it was safe and it was non-addictive and non-lethal. They lied. They knew they were lying. They, in fact, paid bonuses to the distributors for each overdose they caused. This is all proven in the legal documents after the American government sued these companies and collected $50 billion. Now, I tell you this history because it brings us to the present. So now we have people addicted on the same opioids. And what does Trudeau say is the solution? He says we need to give out more, he says they're safe, pharmaceutical-grade opioids that are uncontaminated. So, now, let's get this straight. The crisis was started by pharmaceutical opioids, and he says the solution is more pharmaceutical opioids. These drugs are literally, the ones he's giving out are literally more powerful than heroin. They are. Hydromorphone, more powerful than heroin. And we found out, we said this was all being diverted to organized crime. They claimed it was a conspiracy theory. Well, you might want to go check the RCMP's Twitter account. They revealed 1 week ago, almost to the day, that 10,000 doses of taxpayer-funded so-called safe supply has been diverted and seized from organized crime. Those drugs are being sold to kids in schools who get addicted, and when they're no longer strong enough, they graduate up to fentanyl. That is what is causing what's caused 40,000 people to lose their lives. My friends, we have a better way. Our common sense plan is to cancel these tax-subsidized drugs and instead invest in beautiful new treatment centers to bring our loved ones home drug-free. Beautiful centers where there'll be detox, counseling, group therapy, sweat lodges for First Nations, fitness programs, yoga, job training. We'll then graduate the addicts into transitional housing right next door where they can come back for another counseling session, a workout, or maybe even to give some guidance to an incoming addict on how to overcome that difficulty. This is the proven way to get it done. We're going to get our people off the drugs, bring them home. And I said we'd have a dollar-for-dollar law. I'll tell you how we're going to pay for any excess costs above and beyond the savings we get from canceling these so-called safe supply programs. This is how we're going to pay for it. We are going to sue the big, corrupt pharmaceutical companies and make them pay. They will pay. And we will stand up to Big Pharma. They put this section in Trudeau's budget bill, C-47, which cracks down on our natural supplement sector. They're basically shutting down the production of natural health supplements in Canada and killing off small businesses with these heavy-handed taxes and regulations that are specially designed to get people off natural remedies and onto pharmaceutical drugs. We will repeal these laws and let you decide what you put in your body and let you have the freedom of choice. Freedom of choice. This is our common sense approach, my friends, to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime, because we believe in putting you back in charge of your life. We believe that no government should dictate from above how you live. And that is why we're going to stand on the side of our law-abiding hunters and sport shooters and protect them. Come on up here. Come on up here. Look at that. There we go. Protect the hunters. There you go. Trudeau thinks that banning Grandpa Joe's hunting rifle is going to stop gun crime. He's not Grandpa Joe. He's far too young to be a grandpa. But nevertheless, he's made it very clear he's going to ban every single hunting rifle. He tried it. He published 300 pages of legitimate firearms that he wants to ban when he amended his already terrible C-21 in committee. And he said in December of 2022 in an interview that he's going to take away your hunting rifle. Do not be fooled. If this guy gets back in with his coalition with the NDP, they will take away your hunting rifles, all while allowing the repeat violent offenders who shoot up our streets back on the street. We know that the crime is caused by smugglers. 82% of Toronto gun crime uses American guns smuggled in or over our porous borders. My friends, the obvious solution is to secure the borders, save the money. We only inspect 1% of the shipping containers that come into Canada. The other 99% go in and out without any scrutiny whatsoever. The Port of Montreal, from which most of our central Canadian stolen cars are shipped, has 5 CBSA officers for 500,000 shipping containers. It's very obvious what the solution is. For a fraction of the price that the $2 to $5 to $7 billion Trudeau wants to spend going around seizing people's hunting rifles, we could pay for scanners to scan every single container that comes in and goes out to stop the drugs and stop the crime. This is a common sense approach. A common sense approach that stands on the side of the people who follow the law. Those who work hard, pay their taxes, and live and play by the rules. The NDP have ignored now for so long. They're the people over whom the government in Ottawa thinks it can rule and for which it thinks it can decide. We believe the opposite. We believe that the common people should be the masters of their own lives and their own destinies. So we will repeal the censorship law C-11, so you decide what you see and say online. There will be no central bank digital currency. No mandatory digital ID. No members of my government with any involvement in the World Economic Forum. And we will bring home our money from wasteful foreign aid, from botched procurement and back office bureaucracy, and we will put it right back into the principal guarantor of our freedom. That is the men and women who lead our armed forces. Rebuild the military. Let's rebuild the forces. They stand on guard for us. Bring it home. Bring it home. You know, a lot of people have wondered what bring it home means, but it has a very specific set of meanings. It means bringing home more of what you earn. It means bringing home our industries to Canada. But more than that, it means bringing home the country that we knew and still loved. And to those who've forgotten, because our Prime Minister would like us to forget, how good things were and how much better they can be, let me paint the picture for you. It's a picture of school children skipping safely off to school in the morning with their parents no longer worried about their safety as they head there. It's the picture of a family sitting around the dinner table with their doors unlocked because they're no longer afraid to live in their neighborhood. It's the picture of seniors leaving the grocery store with groceries in the car and change in their pockets, waving at a shopkeeper who cleans the front of his shop, knowing that he will be rewarded for the risks he's taken and the work that he does. It's the picture of Legionnaires sweeping away debris and planting fresh flowers for the honorable soldiers who gave their lives for that community and their entire country. It is the picture. And it is the sound. It is the sound of mothers yelling out to their kids, it's bedtime, and those kids yelling right back, 10 more minutes as they try to play some more street hockey, and then all of a sudden quiet. And there, on a front porch, sit a young couple with a Canadian flag hanging peacefully from their brand new home. With a cold drink in one hand and a beautiful paycheck in the other. Their eyes meet and they look at each other in a way that can only mean, we did it. All the hard work paid off. The Canadian promise is restored because finally we're home. We're home. These are our people. That is our country. This is our home, your home. home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home. Thank you very much. God bless Halifax.